In year 6, with Ricky Rahne and Colton Joseph back, is it time for ODU to contend in the Sun Belt East? It's a bonus episode of Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We will get to a full recap of the weekend's action, and it was not pretty, on Monday. But we have a bonus episode. We got caught up previewing all of the action, and so we'll recap it later on. But we spoke with the Virginian-Pilot's David Hall about the ODU Monarchs. Not awful, but not great over the weekend. Actually had a shot, really, and did not play all that well. But this is more big picture than anything else, although I will say they covered, and pretty easily, actually. So we talked to David Hall about Ricky Rahne and the ODU Monarchs. Time for them to contend. We talk about how good the program is and where the program should be. And it is year to year and all those good things. So let's get to it. He is David Hall's been covering the Monarchs at the same time that Ricky Rahne has been. So he is going into his 6th year as well. Find out the first time they actually spoke to them, each other face to face. He is on the Belt Beat, and he is Locked On Sun Belt. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. We continue our features of the Belt Beat. David Hall covering those ODU Monarchs since 2020. He came in the same year as Ricky Rahne. So are you, and he does it for the Virginia-Pilot. So are you technically in your 6th year, or are you in your 5th year like Ricky Rahne?
We're in the same boat, I guess. It's my 6th year, my 5th year with a football team to watch. Right. And Ricky and I went through that weirdness together. I mean, when he was hired here from Penn State, where he was the offensive coordinator, our entire relationship existed on the phone because everything was completely locked down. It was the height of COVID. Right. And so our first 10 or 12 conversations right out of the gate were over the phone. And I remember the day I met him at practice. He's like, I wondered what you looked like. And I said, same here.
Right. All right. So I'm a big fan of Ricky Rahne. I'm a big fan of Colton Joseph. Rahne is the dean of Sun Belt coaches, as it turns out. I guess Butch Jones has been coaching the team the same amount of years. He's heading into his 5th year. And so I think it's time for ODU and Ricky Rahne to contend in the East. A lot of turnover in terms of coaches and quarterbacks in that division. Some people do not agree with me. They don't have him picking where I would be. What do you believe is their possibilities here in 2025? Because I think they can contend in the East.
Well, I think they're just like everybody else. There is a ton of uncertainty headed into this season. I believe they returned 6 starters on offense and 4 on defense. And that's pretty consistent with most teams. And then you have, of course, the portal. You had guys leave. You had a bunch of guys come in. It's going to take some time to figure out exactly what they have. Ricky believes he has an athletic team. He kind of knows what they can do in practice, but that can change when it's on TV and there are 20 to 50,000 people in a stadium. And they'll just have to wait and see who can handle that kind of pressure. Now, I asked Ricky not too long ago about whether this is a make or break year. Does he feel pressure to win this year? Because they haven't had a winning season here since 2016. That's a long time. And they've been to 2 bowl games under Ricky, which is, in my opinion, kind of the lowest bar for even a mediocre program just to get to the postseason, because about half the teams go. So when I asked him if he felt pressure, he said, nobody puts more pressure on me to win than I do. It doesn't matter where else that pressure comes from. It's what he feels inside. And he also added that he's not going to be satisfied with just getting to a bowl. And he doesn't want that to be a goal going into the season. He doesn't want a winning record to be the goal because, as he said, it sells his players short. And the hope, obviously, is that they do much better than that and contend for a championship. And when you look at the past 2 seasons and how many one-score games they've had, 2 years ago they had 11. That's an NCAA record. That's almost impossible.
Right.
Now, if you win all those games, it's a whole different deal. All of a sudden you're going to a much better bowl, and you're gonna be 8-4 or 9-3. So a lot of what I've talked to Ricky and some players and some of his assistants about this year or this preseason is what do they have to do to get over that hump, to take those one-score games and swing all or most of them the other way, because they acquitted themselves pretty well in those one-score games, but they lost enough of them where it's a concern.
Well, they had a couple of one-score games early on last season that really could have set them up well. I'm a really should-have, could-have guy. They really should have beaten South Carolina last year to open up the season. Not even a could-have. They should have beaten them. They just kept on turning the ball over continually, including on the last possession of the game.
Yeah, I think there was about 6 minutes to go, and Colton Joseph threw a pass that was tipped by one of his receivers and fell right into the arms of a defensive back, and that was that. I mean, plus Joseph fumbled a couple of times kind of late in the game.
Well, it was Grant Wilson.
It was
correct. Yeah, no, it wasn't Colton Joseph. Yeah, it was Grant. Yeah,
sorry, Colton.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was Grant. Grant, I think, got hurt the next game, and that's what gave Colton his chance. But yeah, Grant, he owned the fumbles. He said, I got to do better at holding on to the ball. And, I think he worked on that. But then I believe the next week against East Carolina, he hurt his wrist and it opened up the door. So, yeah, to your point, they had South Carolina beaten, and that was in front of 72,000 people, I think. It was the largest crowd to ever see Old Dominion play anywhere. It was also the hottest game in program history. It was ungodly.
Yeah.
But there was a lightning delay in the second quarter. I believe it was 44 minutes.
Oh.
And that sent a lot of the fans packing. So it kind of, nullified the home field advantage to an extent. And I don't know how much that might have helped, but it certainly didn't hurt the Monarchs. But yeah, like you said, they had that game won and just couldn't finish it out. And that's been the story a lot of times.
Well, we were all watching it in Lexington. I foolishly went to the Southern Miss Kentucky ball game that never kicked off until after 10 o'clock. I even had to work the next day, and that didn't even kick off until 10 o'clock. And by the time I got home, they kicked off the second half and then shut it down with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. They had enough. They had a lightning delay, and whatever it got Southern Miss to get the check, I was going to be the only Sunbelt media there. So I thought I'd have, the Fighting Will Halls to myself, but I had to get up and go to work the next day. So getting home at 3 a.m. was not going to be beneficial to me. So, but we were all watching it. And of course, all the Kentucky fans all the Kentucky media was watching South Carolina, maybe losing to Old Dominion. And like we said, they probably should have, and then probably should have beaten East Carolina. They didn't.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like East Carolina put up 42 points. They lost 20-14. So a couple of one-score games. So, and now I think it's ironically or coincidentally, I always get those wrong. You're the newspaper reporter. Grant Wilson is now at IU, and that's where Old Dominion is opening up. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get off to a good start. I'm looking for them to be competitive. Obviously, Indiana was in the playoff last year, and Curt Cignetti knows all about the Sun Belt, so he's not going to take them for granted. They are, more than 20-point underdogs, but I want to see if ODU can put a little scare into Indiana.
Well, for what it's worth, ODU has played JMU quite competitively under Curt Cignetti. So I was talking to Ricky yesterday about when you're watching film for the Indiana game, do you pull out old footage of JMU And he said, yeah, you take anything that you think might help you. And as he said, obviously, Cincinnati has different personnel now in different colors with different numbers and different names. But the overall feel, quote unquote, overall feel is about the same, according to Ricky. So I don't think there'd be a lot of surprises. There might be some size difference between what they saw at JMU and Indiana, but I think ODU is fully prepared for anything Kirk can throw at them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's take a time out. We'll come back and continue our conversation with the Virginia-Pilot's David Hall. We flip the field. We talk about the defense and who's going to be the all-time NCAA leading tackler as long as he stays healthy, linebacker Jason Henderson. We'll do that on the other side after I tell you about Game Cap and Game Time. Quick question for all of you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit in front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said that. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage style fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They're still going for the same price they did back then. When you use code Locked On, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for your exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. And Game Time. College football is back, baby, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, and the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, and the app gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Remember, I've been telling you this. I went to the Reds and the Brewers. It was easy peasy. Day of game. Took my nephew to Samo, and we sat in like the 12th row, 2 tickets for less than $100. It was all so simple, and it all was because of Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the Virginian-Pilot's David Hall. He is on the belt beat. We talk about the ODU Monarchs defense led by linebacker Jason Henderson. We're talking with David Hall for the Virginia-Pilot. He is Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. He is on the belt beat. Let's flip over to the other side and talk about who's probably going to be the all-time NCAA leading tackler, taking over for my guy, Carlton Martial, out of Mobile, played for Troy, is Jason Henderson. How healthy is he?
According to him, he's 100%. He's ready to go. He had a quite devastating knee injury, from what I hear. Ricky Rahne is quite guarded when it comes to injuries. He does not discuss them really at all. For example, basically the guy who took up the slack when Henderson went out early last year, Koa Nyatala, is hurt, kind of questionable for this week. And Ricky said all he'll say is that if Koa can play, if there's any possible way for him to get on the field, he'll do it. And that's kind of what he said about Jason throughout the past 2 years, or last year anyway. But yeah, Jason he's been practicing since the spring, all throughout the summer and the fall camp, and he's running around just like everybody else. Everybody says he's okay. It would be a huge boost to that defense. Obviously, he's a 2-time All-American, 2-time first-team Sun Belt player. He's led the nation in either tackles per game or total tackles twice in 23 and 22. And just had some bad luck last year. He worked his way back from a knee injury, and I think it was a knee the first time. He worked his way back from an injury in one season, essentially, or one off season, and then started at South Carolina and made 3 tackles, and then got hurt, and that was it. So he was granted a red shirt last year. Seems like he's been there forever, but if he could play another 5 years, I'm sure they'd love to have him.
Right. Right. And so how good is this defense going to be? Because it's usually not the offense that has issues putting the points up. I guess they're in their third season running this Fordham offense.
Yeah. The defense is the whole team's a question mark, quite frankly. I don't think anybody on the team or around the program would argue with that. And just as every other team in the Sun Belt and every other team in the nation practically is a question mark, just because of the nature of college football now. But they brought in a lot of size and speed in the defensive backfield. I think that they're really deep back there. I think deeper than ever. Certainly plenty of experience at linebacker. I think they're kind of piecing together a defensive line, which is not a knock against them. They've found some guys who they think can help out and can make some plays. So it remains to be seen. I hate to keep saying that. I'm not big on predictions, and I wasn't big on predictions when people played 4 years of school. Now, ODU has a 7th-year center on offense.
That's awesome.
And yeah, which, as I said, that's like an NFL career. That's just the way of the world now. He had a medical red shirt, he had a regular red shirt, and he had the COVID year.
Yeah.
And everybody got that COVID year back. And I think we're about to see the 7th-year players kind of ushered out after this season. But Jason Henderson has certainly performed when he's been able to, and he seems able to now.
Well, David, if some of these guys are, wise enough to take advantage, they could end up with an MBA. I don't know if you can go to medical school, maybe pushing it, but you can maybe be able to go to law school and have college pay for it.
Yeah, I made a joke to the center, Ryan Joyce. I said, "Are you a doctor by now?"
Yeah.
He goes, "No, maybe I should have pursued that line of study when I started out. If I know I was going to be in it this long." But he has an undergraduate degree, a graduate degree, and he's pursuing another graduate degree. People, I guess, deride the kind of educational side effects of being on an athletic scholarship, but a lot of people seem to be taking advantage of it. So, and why wouldn't you?
And then, it's not all about, the Gio Lopez is getting the, $2 million. If you can get, $50,000 a year in your pocket, right? All of a sudden you're putting a down payment on a home.
Yeah.
And you're paying off your mortgage, when you're 40.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I don't think anybody at Old Dominion's getting that kind of money. I could be wrong. They're more guarded about that than they are injuries.
Oh, they don't know. We don't know if ODU's got any kind of NIL program?
Oh, they absolutely do. They have
all right.
What do you call those things? Like a trust,
a collective?
Collective.
Collective.
Exactly.
Okay.
They have a collective. And the school, I think, is involved with that. There's also, based on that House decision, I believe,
the revenue share. Sure.
The school can pay them directly.
Yeah. So they're making a few bucks. Yes.
And don't forget that, for example, I think 2 years ago, Jason Henderson did an appearance at the AAA stadium here. I don't know what they paid him for it, but he sat at a table and signed autographs and met and greeted people. So, I'm sure he didn't do that for free. I don't think I would. But those kind of things can also generate some money.
Yeah. So again, if that's like $5,000,
yeah,
right, you make a couple of those appearances, and like you said, you get a couple of deals. And again, no one's making. I don't think anybody across the Sun Belt is making high 6 figures or 7 figures. But if you're playing in the Sun Belt for 3 or 4 years, you could find yourself making 6 figures over that time frame, right? You're making 25, 30, 40, 50,000 per year, and all of a sudden you're doing pretty well. Yeah,
and I think that's part of how you keep people in a program. It's certainly
Right.
not. It's certainly not everything, but I was kind of thinking about this earlier today about how Colton Joseph eventually kind of fell into the starting quarterback job and then played well enough to keep it, and then kind of re-earned it in the off season in fall camp, and he's an example of a guy, and so is Jason Henderson for that matter. They're examples of guys who have played well in a league like the Sun Belt and probably heard some chirping from the SEC and the Big Ten, et cetera. And as Jason has said multiple times, the grass, what do you say? The grass is not always greener elsewhere. The grass is greener where you water it. And he's like, the grass is fine here. And that's why he's stuck around for so long. And the thing that I was really thinking about was how guys like that, they have a good year, and then you've already recruited them. You've already sat down with their families and convinced them that they're going to be taken care of. They're going to have good coaches, good mentors, good teammates. They're going to be in a nice geographical location. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to make lifelong friends. Then they have that good year, and you got to do that all over again, sort of. I mean, I guess in some cases, guys just say, I'm coming back, and that's that. But I imagine a lot of college coaches around the country are having to sit down with their best players and go, look, let me remind you, I promised you a chance to play if you were good in practice, and you were good in practice and you played. I promised you good coaches. These guys are great. You can't argue with that. I promised you teammates who would be friends for life. Now you have those. Are you going to give that up so you can go play backup linebacker at Clemson? So I think I imagine there's a lot of re-recruiting going on.
And I do believe that there is a certain level, right? Like we may do this again where, maybe you can't match what Colton Joseph is going to get. Because I do believe somewhere along the way there was flirting and he came back. So I'm presuming he got a little bit more than he was getting, if he was getting anything as a freshman. Whereas, say, Gio Lopez from South Alabama was getting something to stay. And then again, some guy named Belichick comes in with $2 million per year for 2 years. You can't compete with that. And so South Alabama is going to use that, come here, and maybe you go get money later on. Right. But, go ahead, Gio, go be great, right? We can't compete with that. You can't do anything about that. And so we'll see what happens down the road. So I think there's a little bit to that where there's a certain level that you can compete at, and then there's not. You can only wash your hands of it when it gets too much. But I think there's something to be said for what you said, that when you get it to stay in our ballpark, we can compete. But when you start getting into that extra zero, you can't stay that way.
Yeah, you can't argue with a kid who's going to take $2 million.
No, you can't.
I would do it.
Yeah, no. I think everybody was, go get your money.
And
we're talking with David.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I was going to say people hate this, and everybody I talk to hates it.
Right.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm a little bit ambivalent. I tend to err on the side of the players, give them some grace for finally getting paid when everybody else around them was getting paid. But it's kind of turning conferences like the Sun Belt into the minor leagues for major college football.
It is right now.
Like it or not.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you have a really good year in the Sun Belt, all of a sudden you get the ACC's attention, and they got the money to make you change your mind.
Yeah, like apparently South Alabama lost their top 5 cornerbacks, so that's going to be an issue apparently. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back and wrap up our conversation with David Hall for the Virginia-Pilot. We do talk about where does ODU fit in such a huge metropolitan area. They could be a very sleeping giant outside of Georgia State. They are the biggest market in the Sun Belt. We'll do that after I tell you about Rougiet. Guys, you probably have heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If the traditional options haven't worked, Rougiet may be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online. Rougiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We also have an opportunity for you to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Who doesn't want that? There's a quick survey we're asking you to fill out. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with the Virginian-Pilot, David Hall, talking about where does ODU fit in such a huge metropolitan area. One point in time, the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area was the largest metropolitan area without a major league franchise in the country. He tells me what they used to be, what they are, and maybe what they can be. He has been on the Belt Beat heading into his 6th season, and he is locked on Sunbelt. We're talking with David Hall from the Virginian-Pilot, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. He is on the Belt Beat. All right, I feel like ODU is the sleeping giant in the Sunbelt. They are the one, I guess it's them and Georgia State in terms of, not being in your cliche college town, right? They are in urban settings. At one point in time, Norfolk was, the biggest area in the country without a major league franchise for a long time. And so where does ODU, where is it in the community? And can they be that way? Do they sell out? How many people come to these games? Because it is, I think we've spoken before, it's like 3 different communities, right? And so where does ODU stand? And, where how much is the community behind them? And, can they get them behind them? And can they be, a winning football program on a regular basis?
All good questions. And in fact, just last week, I believe, I had a story. You can read it at pilotonline.com. It's a deep dive into ticket sales, season ticket sales in particular. When they were FCS and around the time they made the transition to FBS in early 2010s, they were winning 10 games at times, and they were selling out all 15,000 season tickets with 5,000 people on a waiting list. And then 2019 happened. They went 1-11. Ticket sales were still pretty good. Bobby Wilder, their program founding coach, was fired after that season. And Ricky came in 20, and the school chose to cancel the season because of COVID. One of just a couple in the country to do that. And in 21, the season ticket sales just bottomed out at like 7,000. And since then, it's been kind of creeping back up. And at last check, they had sold 9,078, something like that, season tickets. And they were expecting that number to go up to about 9,600, which, if you think about the fact that they play in a stadium at Indiana or South Carolina or Virginia Tech, that's a drop in the bucket, obviously. But they are executing initiatives to really partner with the military. This is the home of the largest naval base in the world. And to your point about it being separate areas, it's actually 7 cities, and I won't name them all, but the biggest are Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake, and they're all kind of right together. They all border each other, and they try to draw from those communities. The naval base is north of campus. I would say you're correct. Norfolk is definitely not a college town, but the little corner where ODU is between downtown and the naval base is like its own little college town. The campus and its surroundings definitely have the feel of a college town, and not the size and scope of a Chapel Hill or a Columbia, South Carolina, but it certainly is a community. The student section, as Ricky Rahne says just about every time I talk to him, shows up and they stay the whole game, and they're loud, they're into it. And I talked to some players last week about what that means when they're, 3-6 and they're down 12 points. They do feed off of that. They feed off the student section, but if the rest of the stadium is at least partially full, that's a big boost as well. And I think they are heading in the right direction when it comes to attendance. And Ricky made the best point possible, and it's the most obvious point. He goes, we got to do our part and win games. That's it. Right. If you, as they've already proven in the early years of this program, if they put a winning product out there, they're going to draw fans, and that's a simple formula that's as old as football.
Yeah, there it is. Some other places in this conference, that's not necessarily the case. But there is no. That's the thing. There's no competition there, right? Virginia is not that close in terms of
3
the
hours.
area, or Vatech, for that fact of the matter.
Even further, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could even call it competition, there is William and Mary, which is like 45 minutes away in Williamsburg. There's JMU, which is pretty far up in the mountains, but it's ODU's biggest rival. I don't think people are choosing between JMU and ODU games. Norfolk State is here in town with new first-year coach Michael Vick, which has certainly affected season ticket sales over there. And there may be some people who want to go see Vick's team instead of ODU, just to see what happens. Can he be another Deion Sanders? Yeah. So that all remains to be seen. But the best barometer right now, in my opinion, is ticket sales, and they are pushing 10,000, and that's good news for that program when you consider that 4 years ago they were at 7,000. So it's going the right way.
And how many does the stadium hold?
20.
All right. So that's 50% of the stadium. That's not bad. Like you said before, it was 15.
Yeah, and they sell plenty of single game tickets. Officially, if you look at the box scores from last year, they averaged about 20,000 a game. I believe it was a little bit more than that.
All right.
They essentially averaged a sellout. Now, a lot of those people, showed up disguised as towels sitting on a chair.
Sure.
But people buy tickets and don't make it to a game for whatever reason, or they buy season tickets and only go to 3 games.
Right.
And that just happens. But that counts as a ticket sold. So technically, yes, their ticket sales are really good lately. And I think if they can, maybe pull off an upset at Indiana, maybe win some early games, they could make some headway in getting more actual people in there.
Well, they do have a nice home schedule, but it is a brutal schedule, right?
Oh,
they do get North Carolina Central at home, but they are at Indiana, at Virginia Tech, and then they get Liberty and Coastal Carolina at home. That is that's a brutal 4-game stretch to begin the season.
Yeah, and I don't even think North Carolina Central is that much of a pushover.
Mm-hmm.
If I have this right, I believe I saw that North Carolina Central handled Southern pretty well this past weekend. And I don't know.
They did 31-14. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So the MEAC. I used to cover the MEAC. I covered Norfolk State for a few years, and you never knew from one year to the next what team was going to be any good in that league. And in a way, it's like the Sun Belt in that most of the games are competitive. The Sun Belt, I've been covering college football for 20 years, and I've never seen parity in a league like the Sun Belt has.
Right.
And since ODU got into the league, in 22, it's just been completely up for grabs, pretty much. I mean, I think Coastal Carolina dominated one year, but otherwise it's
for
just you just
Yeah.
never know. You never know who's gonna win in any given week, and that makes it fun.
Generally speaking. He is David Hall. He is with the Virginian-Pilot, and he's been covering ODU since 2020. He has on the Belt beat, and he's been locked on Sun Belt. Really appreciate your time, David. Always great catching up. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. All right, hopefully we'll talk sometime during the year. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anytime, man.